you guys actually enjoy treating your customers like a piece of shit, because that's how I felt when I went to the Alum Draft House. Okay? You know what? I didn't know that I wasn't supposed to text in your little crappy-ass theater. It was too f***ing dark in that place for me to find my seat, all right? I was using my phone as a flashlight to get to my f***ing seat. So excuse me for using my phone in USA, United States of America, where you are free to text in a theater. I was not aware that I couldn't text in your theater, all right? I've texted in all the other theaters in Austin, and no one ever gave a fuck about what I was doing on my fucking phone, all right? And it was on silent. It wasn't on loud. It wasn't bothering anybody. You guys obviously were being assholes to me, and I'm sure that's what you do, you know, to rip people off. You take my money, and then you throw me out. You know, I will never be coming back to your Alamo Draft House or whatever. I'd rather go to a regular theater where people are actually polite. And, you know, I'm going to tell everyone about how you are. And I'm pretty sure you guys are being on purpose. So thanks for making me feel like a customer. Thanks for taking my money.
It's chocolate. You should be very proud, Detective.
Shut up!
You've made a delicious life for yourself.
Said shut the fudge up! What?
You don't come near here. You stay away from here.
Here he comes.
What?
Are you listening, David? I was saying how much I admire you and your ice creams. You have incredible taste in fine ice creams.
What the fudge did you just say?
6 delicious flavors. They're so lovely. And once they're gone, David, they're gone.
David, step away from the prisoner. Step away, David. Step away.
What's in the box?
I'm not gonna tell you until
What's in the box? What's in the box?
We each have our weaknesses. It appears that gluttony is my sin of choice. And you add the mystery. I couldn't resist.
What's in the malted fudging box?
It's empty, David. It's empty.
No! It was full. 6 delicious flavors. Only available this month.
I know. It was delivered to your home. It was delectable.
Do you think anybody's gonna get, like, offended by this?
Just tall white Karens.
Monotony. It comes in all shapes and sizes. Dull, tedious, just plain boring. But what is this? A contender, perhaps? Something unboring by the looks of it. Jabs right at dull, an uppercut to tedium, something that keeps you on your toes, keeps your head on a swivel. A knockout punch to your old, boring workouts. Welcome to Fight Camp.
The Greening the Gateway Cities program provides trees that are planted by DCR foresters and crews hired from local communities. When you sign up as a potential tree recipient, a forester will visit your home or business to determine the best location and species of tree for maximum energy efficiency. Easy care instructions are provided, and it's all free. Find out if you're in the zone and learn more at maurbancanopy.org.
If we're honest, who wants to road less travel? It's harder to teach us. Who wants the difficult route?
If you support safety in our schools, you will support the National Guard to come in here and keep our students safe.
People say, these students have changed. These students are lazy.
Your children aren't learning disability, they lazy.
Get students engaged so they don't want to skip class, so they want to be in their classrooms.
There are teachers in this profession who should not be teachers. There are teachers in this profession who don't care about children.
These students don't want to learn. No, the adults have changed. See, the parents don't have the back of the teachers.
He ain't slow. He ain't got no learning problem. His parents didn't give him a foundation.
Young people, as a nation, we sorely need the depth and breadth of your intelligence, character, and also your clarity.
I think about, in particular, the history of people that look like me who are getting cheated.
So if you're asking me right now as an educator, what's wrong with these kids? There's nothing wrong with them.
Teachers are the most important people in the world.
They're whimpering in fear, and we're sitting here scared of them.
Because if they get it right, they'll change the world because they're in charge of the most important resource, and that's our children.
Shaolin shadowboxing and the Wu-Tang sword style. If what you say is true, the Shaolin and the Wu-Tang could be dangerous. Do you think your Wu-Tang sword can defeat me?
On guard. I'll let you try my Wu-Tang style.
Same with you. Same with you.
Set out to get you with a fine-tooth comb. I was soft inside. There was something going on.
Shaolin shadowboxing and the Wu-Tang sword style. If what you say is true, the Shaolin and the Wu-Tang could be dangerous. Do you think your Wu-Tang sword can defeat me?
On guard. I'll let you Try my Wu-Tang style.
Same with you. Same with you.
Oscar Mike Radio is a proud podcast partner of Reach Across America Radio, heard every Thursday at 11 a.m. and Sunday at 8 a.m. Eastern. They're also big supporters of the nonprofit I Got Your Six, Two Lives at Once. And with every wreath you sponsor through Oscar Mike Radio, $5 goes back to this great organization dedicated to making a difference in the lives of veterans, law enforcement, firefighters, and first responders battling PTSD. Two Lives at Once pairs these brave men and women together with dogs rescued from kill shelters. In this way, two lives are saved at the same time by saving each other. Donate now. Go to reachacrossamerica.org/Oscar Mike Radio to help. That's reachacrossamerica.org/Oscar Mike Radio.
Hey guys, my name is James, but everybody calls me JJ. I'm 42 years old and I'm from Springfield, Massachusetts. Achieving this milestone is huge for me because I have wasted a lot of years of my life. You know, I struggled with addiction for years. I've been in and out of incarceration. So as far as accomplishments and milestones go, I don't have too many. So accomplishing this for me is huge. I mean, it's one of the hardest things that I've ever had to do, and one of the things that I'm definitely the most proud of. Well, I had been thinking about getting my CDL for a while now, but as somebody who was released from prison not too long ago, the cost of the school was way more than I could afford. This program has given me a chance to build a career that I can actually support myself with and be proud of. It might take me a little bit longer than the average person to land a job because of my record, but I'm not going to give up. All I need is one person to say yes, and I'll be able to build on that and get some experience and go to the next level. Huge shout out to Emerge program and my two coaches, Cody and Eric. Why wouldn't you choose Emerge? I mean, not only do they pay for all the costs of the school and other costs such as, RMV fees, DOT fees. You may also be eligible to get a stipend at some point, but all that aside, just the level of support and encouragement is second to none. I mean, I can call or text my coach at almost any time of the day, and if he doesn't respond, he's getting back to me the next day. It's just reassuring to know you have people on your team that want to see you succeed. So I literally cannot think of one bad thing to say about Emerge, and I would recommend it to anyone who is interested in getting their CDL. I think that programs like this are monumental in reducing the amount of recidivism that we have in this country. People who have made a lot of mistakes but have done a complete 180 and changed their lives. And the things that I did in the past, that wasn't me. That's not the person that I am today. So I believe that people deserve second chances if they want to do the work and really want to change. And programs like this are huge because, especially if you're just getting released from incarceration, a lot of these things aren't feasible because of the costs. So when you give somebody this, hope and opportunity, it's huge because if they really want to change, they're going to take it and run with it. So I hope that programs like this continue because people deserve second chances, you know? And I'm grateful. I'm super grateful.
Master Yoda I am. And listen you must to hulazoom.com.
What does Marcellus Wallace look like?
What?
What country you from? What ain't no country I ever heard of? They speak English and what?
What?
English, motherfucker! Do you speak it?
Yes.
Then you know what I'm saying.
Yes.
Describe what Marcellus Wallace looks like.
What?
Say what again? Say what again? I dare you. I double dare you, motherfucker. Say what one more goddamn time.
He's black.
Go on.
He's bald.
Does he look like a bitch?
What?
Does he look like a bitch?
No!
Then why you try to fuck him like a bitch, Brett?
He didn't.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did, Brett. You tried to fuck him. And Marcellus Wallace don't like to be fucked by anybody except Mrs. Wallace. You read the Bible, Brett?
Yes.
Oh, there's this passage I got memorized. Sort of fits this occasion. Ezekiel 25:17. The path of the righteous man is beset on all sides by the iniquities of the selfish and the tyranny of evil men. Blessed is he who in the name of charity and goodwill shepherds the weak through the valley of darkness, for he is truly his brother's keeper and the finder of lost children. And I will strike down upon thee with great vengeance and furious anger those who attempt to poison and destroy my brothers. And you will know my name is the Lord when I lay my vengeance upon thee.
Can you dig it? Can you dig it?
Yeah.
Can you dig it?
You like some motherfucking action heroes in it. Yeah.
This is blasphemy. This is madness. This is the proof.
Step into the twisted mind of my literature, designed to get into the depths of your mind, administer sickness around to mimic the lights of snuff cinema. What you must get into, you're nothing but pops. Remember you Homer and Happy Simpson, son. Nothing Ithaca. Talkers like the northern half of Korea's peninsula. ESP your island like the booth, something sinister. ESP your island like the booth, something sinister. ESP your island like the booth, something sinister.
All right, it's your boy Sinus One broadcasting live from the City of Champions. You are watching The Booth. Let me get into my thanks to all the supporters watching the show worldwide. We see you. Last week's guests, owners of FitChoice 24/7, Nina Pralour and Crystal Tyson was on last week. And this week, before I get into my guests, as you guys can see, let me get into my sponsors real quick because I got to talk about what today is. Michael Douglas, Brother, MDB Electronics. If you need your controller fixed, get it out to him. You're back to gaming in 24, 48 hours. Also, let's see here. Why are these not working today? Tactical target systems. Those are the targets that you see me use at the range. Make sure to check those out. Vienna Marie's music available everywhere. 500,000 streams. Let's go. And then we have here, I Love Boston Sports. Make sure to check out those shirts and see how those go. Marlon Williams, thank you, thank you, thank you. And then let's get into my guests up top. It's April Fool's Day. And here's the thing, people. Usually April Fool's Day is for jokes and make-believe stories. But here's the thing, people. I didn't want to waste tonight with jokes and make-believe stories for fools on April Fool's Day, because I think tonight, and we get into our legal and Trump trouble segment, we've got enough fools to build enough foolish stories. But today, I'm here to say, you know, this is where we are. This is what we're doing, and this is what we're going to get into. So let's get into, I got to mention the new, one of the sponsors, new things you see here. Call Larry Handyman Services, 774-826-6549. I'll be posting some pictures that Larry actually did on my house this past weekend. So if you need anything done around the house, call Larry. And let's get into the news booth. Tonight's topic in the news booth, this is the obituary for Tymari James Thomas Albertson, 15 years old. He was the young boy who was shot outside of the restaurants at Westgate Mall. He was the employee who worked at Urban Air. It's a sad story, and this is the obituary for Cevannah C. Alvarez. She was 18, and from what we're seeing on social media, the suspect, as you see pictured here, Davinci Leonard, was dating her or has a connection to her. Brockton police are still seeking info on this double murder suspect. If you know this guy, turn him in. There's no reason why we're still looking for this kid a week and a half later. Turn this coward in if he hasn't already been dealt with yet by street justice, so to say. That's in the news booth. In the entertainment booth, rest in peace to an actor, Richard Chamberlain, 90 years old. My earliest memory of Richard Chamberlain was in the movie The Swarm with the killer bees, and he had created the poison pellets that were to kill the bees, and he was upset that, you know, they didn't think these bees were going to respond to his killer pellets, and he makes this big rant. And but most of us came to know Richard Chamberlain through the miniseries Shogun, which was now redone and was now a big deal. You guys remember Richard Chamberlain? Your fondest memories of Richard Chamberlain as an actor or what he was in?
Just to show you how old I am and how decrepit I am, I remember seeing The Four Musketeers in the theaters.
Oh,
and he played Artemis.
That's right.
That's how old and decrepit I am. And of course, he was great. For those of you, they all were great. But I remember playing Artemis, the rather lascivious priest. And then, of course, years later, when VCRs became a thing, I got to see the Three Musketeers, the originals. I actually saw the sequel before I saw the prequel, the original. That's where I remember him from.
Osquid?
Yeah, no, just, somebody who had a huge impact in the industry. A lot of nothing lately, of course, but certainly had a huge impact in his time, and great career. What can you say? Respect.
Yeah, good stuff. Also in the entertainment booth here in Boston, we have an alum, Emerson College alum, Jennifer Coolidge, who's also known as Stifler's mom. She will be delivering the commencement address at Emerson College. I can't, guys. Actually, I'm going to go to R Square because he teaches. Why does the school year seem to go by so fast when you're not in school?
It sure does.
I sit there and I say, they're already coming up and gearing up for college commencements and graduations in the next couple of weeks, correct? When do you guys go R Squared up your place?
The weekend before Memorial Day.
Oh, see, so yeah, you're gearing up. You're already headed there. Any plans for your school? Do you know who your commencement speaker is?
Yeah, at Skidmore, where I'll be on stage, we have two speakers, and their names me at the moment.
Oh, I didn't know you go back to Skidmore every year. I thought you were staying up here for the school up here that you're teaching at. So you go back.
Yeah.
You go back every year to Skidmore.
Yeah, I'm on the board of trustees, so we participate in commencement. I used to speak at commencement. I did it for 5 years, and it was really an honor to be part of it. Now I just attend. I get to sit on stage, but quietly.
Ken, are you involved in any commencements this year?
Not this year, not directly. My eldest nephew is getting his master's degree at Drexel, so I probably will show up.
Congratulations!
Just to lend support. I'm just not ready for that. He is my brother's eldest child, but you gotta understand, I can remember when my brother called me to tell me he gotten engaged to this gentleman's mother. And that feels like it was yesterday, and now he's graduating with a master's degree. It's just like, it's not the world I want to get off.
You know, you brought up Jennifer Coolidge and Emerson. I just have to, if I could share one quick story about that, just because we have a lot of serious stuff to talk about. So maybe something with just a little bit of levity. So, I'm wearing my 3ID shirt because last week was the anniversary of the Iraq War, and so we always kind of commemorate that, not in person this year, but because it's 23, but 20 years we had a big commemoration. Anyway, the short story is when you have, Humvees and other vehicles, you put a name on it up in the, you put a tape up in the windscreen, top corner of the windscreen with the name of your vehicle. You get to name it. And it's, the official numbering's in the back, you get to put a name. And we were not allowed to use the two names that we wanted. And I won't go into it. There was nothing offensive about it, but we were denied that. So we decided we're just going to do something funny. And we decided to go with Stifler's mom. And so for the duration of the invasion of Iraq, and not that there's anything funny about the war, but our vehicle was called Stifler's mom. And so when people would look for us, they'd say, "Where's Stifler?" And, so Jennifer Coolidge now being announced to be the speaker at Emerson, thinking back on that. That's my favorite role of hers, by the way.
And it's funny that you bring that up because that one role is such an iconic pop culture transition. I mean, even though she played that one role, that movie and that role gave us the MILF. The word MILF came from that, and that blew up. The Stifler's mom became this term that guys would use to describe other people's hot moms. So that was integrated in. And she actually wrote she wrote a book about how impactful that one role was for her. Like, she had said that she couldn't even get dates. She had a hard time getting dates before that film. And once that film came out, she said, like, her inbox, her phones were just blowing up from all of these guys, and most of these guys were all younger guys. And she said, she admits she lived her life. She says she did live her life as an older woman. So only put that out there. So congrats to her. And for those who don't realize this, Emerson College, we talk about Harvard, we talk about MIT here, we talk about all these great colleges here. But one of the things that we really don't talk about here is Emerson College. For those who don't know and you're watching this podcast, here in Boston, Emerson College is the heartbeat of comedy and sitcom and comedy movies in Hollywood. People don't realize that a lot of your Hollywood comedy writers for SNL and things of that sort, they came from Emerson. And a lot of people don't realize that Emerson has a lot of talent out there who's responsible for comedic genius in the last, I want to say decades, right, Ken?
Oh, it goes beyond that. Emerson College has been known for its theater and writing going back to at least the 20s. One of the people who, believe it or not, is associated with Emerson, most people don't know, is Dennis Leary. He's a graduate of their creative writing program. Most people, associate him with with New York because he did a lot of his work down there, but he's actually a Massachusetts boy. But no, Emerson College has been known for many years for its creative writing program, its literary program. It's overshadowed by people who do more into the visual arts, but it's been known for that type of program. Oh God, I'd say at least 80 years.
Yeah, I believe a lot of SNL writers
they-
came out of Emerson.
Yeah, I mean, they basically are credited with creating the modern political satire back in the 20s. What we now talk about as political satire, back then it was in the written page. They pretty much created it. So all of those, anytime you see if you see a meme or if you see a parody, thank Emerson, because those are the people who pioneered that type of work.
Okay. Anything you want to add on that, R-Squared?
No, I agree with what Ken said.
All right, let's get into the sports booth. In the sports booth, we actually have breaking news. Breaking news just before we came on the air. Robert Kraft has announced, and I agree with this, but I think it's going to cause some discussion here in New England. The Patriots have just announced that they will be inducting Bill Parcells into the Patriots Hall of Fame. Now, if you're going to induct Bill Parcells for his contributions to the Patriots' success, then I hate to say this, but you have to induct Pete Carroll. I think he was also part of that success. Pete Carroll actually had a better record than Bill Parcells, but the fact that he was this players coach, people really didn't like him. But I think you have to induct him. I agree. I agree with Bill Parcells going in, but then you better put Pete Carroll in there.
Well, remember, Bill Parcells took him to the Super Bowl.
That's true. So, you want to add on that, Ken?
Well, I agree with you. I think Pete Carroll is one of those underappreciated gems. I think he set the stage for Bill Parcells and Bill Belichick to come along. He was the guy who got New England to stop being the joke of the league. He started, the way he did things, the way he trained players and trained coaches. Again, if Bill Parcells and Bill Belichick are the major leagues, Pete Carroll is the minor leagues.
Kevin Jeffries says Bill's still coaching. That's right. Yep, he got picked up. He'll be coaching this year in the NFL. Parcells, though, I think that's a big day. I think that's a big day here. Although I'm not sure but here's the thing you got to remember, and as Rob Squared is a Giants fan, we must remember that both of those men served as head coach and defense coordinator for a team that we cannot mention on this show because they beat the Patriots in 2 Super Bowls. Well, R-Squared did mention the Giants are coming here this year for a game. I have a feeling that is going to be the game that they will induct him into the Hall of Fame. That's going to be the game. You have to. The Giants will be here, and if he comes, let both teams be able to celebrate this achievement for Bill Parcells. I think that's probably going to be the game that they will do that at when they induct him and have him speak. Giants fans and everybody can enjoy this moment with Parcells being inducted. So I have a feeling I got to look up that date when it's announced and see, because that's probably when it's going to happen. Also, big ups to MattieC in the sports booth. MattieC ran his personal best again at the Shamrock Shuffle 5K. So big ups to MattieC, who's been training. Our big thing is we're trying to see him get into the Boston Marathon either this year or next year. So let's keep going on. Red Sox have announced they will have Star Wars Day on May the 4th Be With You Day. There they are right there with their Star Wars Darth Vader uniforms, which is going to be great. I can't wait. I'm going to have to look online and see how much those are, because I'm going to have to get myself a Red Sox Star Wars jersey. And last thing in the sports booth, the NFL. Guys, we talked about this on the show. The NFL is replacing the first down guys with Hawkeye VRAI measurement. So we saw this coming. I think Rob made a comment last year in regards to we had some issues with first down situations, and you had said it, Rob. You had said, be done with it, if I'm not mistaken. Said you have the technology, you have the goal line cameras. You had already said, be done with it. Let's go.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, what we don't want are more delays like we have with instant replay, right? We can't have that. But they use this technology in tennis. If you watch the US Open, Wimbledon, any of the major tournaments, they use the same technology and it instantly can determine if the ball was in or out. And so, where John McEnroe used to, make a mint off of actually proving the umpires wrong because he had better eyes than the umpires had. Now this technology that instantly can fix the call, and you don't have a 5-minute, circus where people are running around crazy trying to figure it out. So if it can be done instantly and the technology suggests it can, then I suppose that's good. Now, remember, missed calls and some bad calls are all part of the game, and it usually works out evenly by the end. And I don't mind that there are some of those still. Everybody gets mad. We watch the NCAAs, there were some bad calls, but most of the time it evens out. And so, look, let's not ask for perfection. Perfection might ruin the game or lessen the game. So I think technology is good, but let's balance it,
So here's where I also think there are also things that the referees are involved with that they can use theatrics to add to the entertainment of the sport. And sometimes bringing the guys out, measuring it out, you know what I'm saying? And that sometimes that theatrics can help a home team. And then that, they give that first down signal to say that it is a first down, and the people go crazy. You've taken all that away now. That whole entertainment and theatrics part of a football game is now gone. So how are they going to work that in as an entertainment value? Because I hate to say this, you still have
replay, though, where you can get the drama. And keep in mind that a lot of times when you get these lengthy delays, even a short delay, it interferes with the flow of the game because there's a team with momentum that's trying to run the clock or trying to, keep pressure on the defense. And when the refs come out there to do a measurement or do instant replay, all of a sudden teams can do substitutions or they get a quick timeout on the sidelines. So that's the problem, right? It's an unfair timeout because it takes the momentum away from a team that maybe was, managing the clock. So maybe this will be better, but that's why we don't want perfection, right? We still want a little bit of the drama.
Exactly.
Look, I hate to sound like the guy who's yelling at the young kids to get off his lawn, but I'm sorry. I just like my first down markers. I like the guys with the strange cones.
Well, you got to have the markers still. The players have to see the markers. That won't go away.
But I just like the old. I'm sorry. I think we're getting too. This is a sport. It shouldn't be managed by technology. I'll fully admit I'm still against instant replay. I don't think it's any place in professional sports. Blown calls are blown calls, and that's part of the game. They just are. We're humans. We're imperfect. I don't like first of all, I don't like the fact that someone. I swear to God, I'm an attorney. I've been doing this job for 30 years, and if someone asked me to make a ruling on whether a coach could do a throw the red flag for a challenge, I'd be hard-pressed to find out if I was right. I'd probably be wrong as much as I'm right, okay? Because, well, you can challenge this call, but you can't challenge this call, but you can challenge it during this time, but not this other time. I swear to God, pretty soon every football team's going to have a whole, catalog of lawyers on the side advising the head coach on the rules, what he can do and what he can't do. My God.
So here's a non-technology thing. The NFL delayed the vote that was supposed to happen today on the tush push. They were going to ban the tush push today, and they delayed it because they have more argument to come. I guess they're doing it online or something, and they haven't all had a chance to speak, or somehow it got delayed. What do you think about that? It's not a technology issue, but should they ban it or not? Since we're getting on the topic, I'm sorry to get us off track.
You want my opinion?
It was a heavy issue last year. It was a heavy issue last year.
If you're an Eagles fan, you love it.
I have no problem with it. I think it's a perfectly legitimate play. I think it's a great thing. Don't ban it, okay? No one gets hurt. This isn't like a concussion protocol thing or a health thing where we're hitting defenseless receivers or stuff like that. No, it's a fun little thing that's used in very few plays. Let it. And, the NFL's got bigger problems.
The defensive lines just have to hit the leg press more.
Exactly.
That's what I'm saying. Because the stronger line with the stronger legs gets the push. The tush push. If your line is stronger, you're going in. You're getting into the end zone. I like it. It's entertaining. Like I said, defensive lines, get on your leg day. Get on your leg day, and then you'll win these tush pushes. Let's get into the legal booth. All right, Ken.
Yes.
This one's for you. Today is the day. Jury selection for round 2. Cameron Reed begins today. There's a lot. Ken, you're a defensive attorney. I know you've got your ears to the grind on this one in Massachusetts here. There's a lot. First of all, Netflix dropped a whole effing special that everybody's brother and their mother pretty much watched about everything on this trial. Pretty much. Another one, Proctor was fired before this trial began, and I think that speaks volumes. How do you, Ken, in today's jury selection, how do you, as a defense attorney, find and pick and choose a jury when pretty much you have to take somebody's word that they're going to be fair on this jury, even if they've known or seen anything about this case? If you're a defense attorney for this team right now, Ken, how do you scrutinize picking jury members? Because it's tough to say to find somebody in Massachusetts that has not heard about this case.
Well, first of all, jury selection, with all due respect to my brothers and sisters who are in the jury selection field, is more of an art than a science.
Okay.
And it really comes down to not listening to what they say, but reading their body language and how they present themselves. There's no question that probably the vast majority of potential jurors have heard something about the Karen Reed case. Unfortunately, that's the way it is. And you go there and accept it. And the question is, what you're looking for jurors who are going to listen to the evidence carefully. You're going to listen to the judge. They're going to weigh it. Now, remember, as I always tell people this, when you go to a criminal trial, it's not a question of guilt or innocence. It's a question of guilty or not guilty. Has the Commonwealth proved beyond a reasonable doubt all the elements of the crime? If that's not true, I'm entitled to a not guilty. I cannot tell you how many times where I have gone to juries and simply say, I don't know what happened. I wasn't there, but the Commonwealth hasn't proven their case, and I'm entitled to a not guilty. I'm not saying my person's innocent. I'm saying they haven't proved their case beyond a reasonable doubt. And that's what I'm looking for the juror to do. Is there a juror out there who can simply put his or her emotions aside and simply weigh the evidence and come back and say, Commonwealth, this ain't your day, and tomorrow ain't looking particularly good either. And that's a difficult thing to do. Sometimes I get it right. Sometimes I get it wrong. I've misread jurors. I've misread judges. And you just hope and pray that, that you do it right. The second part of that is just because you may select the jury that you want, the evidence may not come in the way you want. I've had that happen. I'm sure Rob can attest to that, where you have this perfect plan about how you want to present your case, and within 5 minutes, it all falls apart.
So my biggest question to you, there was an issue here where the judge was asked to throw out her defense because they had found that the defense had contact with, I guess, the police department. But I guess the judge ruled that they're not gonna throw him off the case. He's remaining because there was what was the scuttlebutt on that?
The scuttlebutt was, and it's a very highly technical issue, and I'll try to break it down, was we are governed by the canons of ethics, by the rules of professional responsibility. And as attorneys, there are certain things we can do with regard to communication, with regard to the prosecution and the police, and certain things we can't do. And there are certain things that when we do it, we become witnesses of the case, and then we can't then defend the person. This is why our good friend Mark Chiappetto.
Mm-hmm.
There is a reason why I hire him on every case. Why? Because he can go and talk to a witness and give me a report. And then if that witness disappears, I may be able to call him for either impeachment or give a report. If I actually talk to the witness, then I become a witness case and I can't represent my person. I need that third person to act as a cutout, to use an intelligence term. And that's what they're claiming he did. That's much more complicated. I'm dumbing this down, okay? I admit it. Rob's probably pulling his hair out, or what it really has. Probably a gasket on this. But that's basically, in a nutshell, what happened. He became a witness or a potential witness in this case, and he shouldn't have done that. That was a Bush League mistake. That's a no. You should know better than that. Don't do that. Get your investigators. That's why you have staff. That's why you have paralegals. That's why you have investigators.
Right. And Mark is actually was representing or helping Turtle Boy in this situation. Mark was going to come on and talk about it, but then it was a mistrial and they're backheaded again. So I don't think Mark will be able to come on. Your opinion on this? Do you think we're headed for another mistrial, or do you think they're going to find an answer to this with what is now come out?
I mean, honestly, again, I'm giving the O.J. Simpson answer. O.J. Simpson wasn't guilty, but that doesn't mean he was innocent. Okay, I don't think they should have retried it. I think they made such a mess of it. There's no way they're going to overcome reasonable doubt. I have no idea what happened. I wasn't there. I haven't listened to all the testimony, but from what I understand, that case is so screwed up. It's screwed up 6 ways from Sunday. If I may quote Judge Deneen, James Francis Xavier Deneen, retired justice of the Brockton District Court, who once said to me once in one of my clients after a bench trial, he goes, "I'm not saying I don't think the Commonwealth proved you innocent because this case is so screwed up. I have no idea who to believe. In that case, you win, but don't take that to mean that I think that you're innocent. I think that's the situation we have here."
Squid, are you following this case at all, or?
Oh yeah, I'm following it. I've asked my students to follow it so we can talk about it as example of things. I'll just make 3 quick points because Ken said everything that you need to know. But just three quick points. First of all, on the jury selection piece, I think we talked about it on this show. I could be wrong. Maybe I said it in class, but if you remember the show Bull, which was about jury selection,
Yes,
I said the show was aptly named because that's what it is, Bull.
Yes, we did talk about it.
Yeah.
And you raised that point.
I have no patience for that. Now, a lot of people are using it, and if you're going to be a practitioner, you have to know how to use it because it's out there, but I don't agree with it, and I do agree with Ken. It's an art, not a science, and there's no way to pick a perfect jury because you don't really know what the jurors are thinking. You don't really know why they're answering questions a certain way, and more importantly, you don't know how they're going to react to your evidence because at the end of the day, most of them will certainly try to follow the judge's instructions and do their job. So that's kind of my view of this, that I have no idea what's going to happen because the first case ended in a mistrial because of the botched investigation and some other errors that were made. And those can't be fixed, right? Those are going to come up again. So,
exactly.
I have a very close friend who's a prosecutor who thinks that there's ample evidence and the case should be retried. And she makes a very strong argument as to why. But I don't know. I think it's harder to win this time because they can't fix what went wrong, and the defense is going to get a second chance at it. And the last point I would make, the third point would be about the jurors themselves with the pre-trial publicity. If anything, it helps the defense in this case. It doesn't always. A lot of times it may help the prosecution with a heinous case, but in this case, it helps the defense if it helps anybody because what they know is not only was there a mistrial, they know about the police investigation, the errors that were made. That was part of the big news coverage. And there was tremendous coverage about the fact that the jury may have wanted to acquit her on the 2 most serious charges. They didn't, and the judge applied Massachusetts law, but it's a very controversial result. And that's what the pretrial publicity is about. And if the jurors hear that, even if they say they can put it aside and only go by what's presented, that's what's in their mind. So we'll see what happens, but I'm not hopeful.
Wow. Good stuff. Good stuff. I really haven't followed it. It's a crazy story. A lot of other radio stations and people are on it. I'm letting them stay on it. I can't wait to see the outcome.
By the way, just breaking news, Cory Booker broke the record, longest Senate filibuster in history.
Oh yeah.
And he's still talking. I have it on. On mute. It's on mute, so I can't tell you what he's saying, but he's still going.
Ooh, good
stuff.
Just
I gotta stick up for my old home state. Most people don't realize I grew up in Jersey. I've been in Massachusetts for over 20 years. I love the state. I'm a certified masshole. I'm proud of that. But in my heart, I'm a Jersey boy. And Cory Booker's from Jersey. He's from Newark. So talk about your sheet cred. You don't get him any more hardcore than Newark.
Also in the legal booth, this is for both you guys. Again, Ken is an immigration attorney. This judge has blocked, and this is very interesting. This judge has blocked Trump's elimination of protections for 600,000 Venezuelans. But here is the interesting story, people. The reason cited why the judge blocked this was, and this was, I wasn't expecting this, but racism. And when you read as to why this judge cited racism, doesn't really surprise me at all. In this judge's paperwork, this judge cites that President Trump and Kristen Noem, in their filings of this executive order against the Venezuelans, there was misinformation, lies, and prejudices about the Venezuelan people and their country in this executive order, to where this judge says, hey, a lot of this stuff in this executive order isn't true. This isn't true about their country. This isn't true about the people. This executive order is sheer racism, and blocked it. I'm going to start with Ken on this one, because Ken, you brought this up about all these executive orders and all these immigrant illegal aliens being people pretty much of color, yet we still have a lot of immigrants in this country who are not of color but aren't being sent home. And then there's discussion of bringing South Africans here as immigrants, or having immigrants buy into this country, elitists, Russian elitists buy into this country for citizenship with a $1 million I got to give this to you, Ken, because this judge is citing racism. And you've said this on this show going way back when they started sending Haitians back. You brought this up. So I'm letting you have your moment right here.
Okay. Thank you very much, Sister One. I will try to be calm. I was told by a number of people that I've been going full diesel on everyone lately, and need to back it down a few notches. So we'll go from a 20 to an 18. Okay. First of all, you need to read the decision, because it's an excellent decision. I read the entire decision. What you may not know, and unless you practice immigration law, you won't know this, that in Title 8, which is where the Immigration Nationality Act can be found, it specifically requires the immigration authorities to apply immigration rules without regard to race, country of origin, religion, ethnicity, or what's the last one I'm looking up? No, there's another one.
So okay? Hold on. So it's similar to the same thing as when you're drawing up lines for voting districts.
Exactly. You are required. Now, this came about because when in the late 60s, during the Civil Rights Movement, there was accusations that at that time, INS, Immigration Naturalization Service, was applying what they refer to as a pro-Northern European bent. And they admitted, said, yeah, we were supposed to. That's what Congress told us to do. So we're doing it. Well, they changed that. So if you apply these rules in a race where you are violating the law, which most people don't understand, that's why when people come out and they target, when they say, they target certain groups, you are violating the law. You cannot do that. It is illegal under the Immigration Nationality Act and its subsequent amendments. Number 2. Now, Rob, because he's more of an legal ethicist than I am, and I'm sure he'll back me up on this, there's something called Rule 11. Now, I see Rob shaking his head because he knows where I'm going. Okay, great. So I'm getting the thumbs up, so I'll keep going. Rule 11 requires all lawyers, when they file in the federal system and also in the state system, that everything they say in the pleading is honest and truthful to the best of their knowledge. They don't have to be right, but they have to have a good faith belief what they're arguing is true. They can argue for a change in the law. They can say the law is dumb and we should change it. That's perfectly acceptable as long as you say this is the law. Now, if you quote facts, you're required to make sure your facts are accurate. There is no excuse in either the federal system or the state system for getting your facts wrong. With all due respect to what was Kelly Conway, you're not entitled to your alternative facts. And if you go in there and you lie to a judge, they will have your balls served up on a silver platter. The lawyers who trained me, lawyers who trained R squared, drilled this into our head. Don't lie. You will get caught, and they will have your head served up on a silver platter with a side order of French fries. Okay? You don't have to say everything. Not saying things is not lying. But if you put something in writing, you better make damn sure you can quote it and cite it. That's why a lot of legal briefs oftentimes have citations right in there, because we're saying, this is where I'm getting it from, so go look me up. Okay? So when they did that, they blew it. They went out and they lied. The last but not least, I want to drive this point home. These are all individuals who applied for and received protections from the United States Citizenship and Immigration Service, better known as CIS. They did everything they were supposed to do. They filed the right paperwork. They paid the fees. And remember, under a congressional mandate, CIS has to turn a profit. They have to turn a profit. And they got approval. And they've been doing everything they're required to do. They're what we call in status. And they're still going after them. That's illegal. Under U.S. law, you can't do that. It's a violation of due process, and it's also a violation of the contract clause. Now, I've said this before, and I'll say it again. There's something in the U.S. Constitution called the contract clause. What that means is once the U.S. government makes a deal with you, they've got to abide by the terms of that agreement. And Rob's going, yeah, well, get some more coffee, Rob. I'm almost done. Rob's here going to sleep on me. When you make an application to CIS and they approve it, that's the contract. The contract is, I'm going to do certain things and you're going to give me certain rights. You can't violate that. Okay? And that's what a lot of the decision was about. So, to all those people saying, well, Trump's just trying to protect, no. He lied. He got caught. He can't do it. It's illegal. Shut the bleep up and sit down until you go to law school and practice criminal law or immigration law or serve in the military as a JAG officer for 30 years. Then you come and talk to me.
Squid, anything you want to add to this situation that this happened?
I think Ken summed it up well. I would just say this. I think the issue of the, falsity being presented in court is far more serious than the attention it's getting.
Okay.
A lot of people may be sitting back saying they care about the substance of the case and lawyers are just being lawyers. No, this is not lawyers just being lawyers. This is a serious breach of professional ethics. It's a serious breach of your professional duties, regardless of what side or what issue you're on. Mm-hmm. And, Ken started off by saying, we knew that if we ever did something like that in court, our careers would be over. Okay, they would be over. You don't get second chances. You can make mistakes and you can learn from mistakes, but you cannot sacrifice your integrity. Those mistakes you don't get to make second time. You're done the first time. And that's what I always train, students and people who work for me was, you can make mistakes. We all do. Just own it and learn from it and we'll be fine. Don't hide from it. However, if you sacrifice your integrity, you don't get a second chance. That's termination of your law license as well as your job. And so, we saw this in the after the 2020 election with all the fake, completely dishonest campaign challenges, election challenges that various Trump legal teams filed. And some of them did face consequences, but not very serious. And many of them faced none. And now these people are representing the Department of Justice, representing the American people in various courts, lying, outright lying. And even when they're not lying, which, that's part of what they're doing, they're acting out of pure racism, as Ken outlined. These things are not excusable. These things are not heat of battle. These things are not strong advocacy or getting carried away or whatever qualification you might want to put on it. These should be, and in any other setting would be, career-ending mistakes. Wow. And I'm sorry, but that's what I want to see in at least some of the more egregious cases. And maybe that will happen, but it didn't after the 2020 stuff, and I'm not so hopeful now.
Wow. And here's the thing.
If I can add one more thing.
Yep, go ahead.
Along
Ken.
those. There was an ADA in Plymouth County, worked in Brockton, who later went to the U.S. Attorney's Office, named Suzanne Sullivan. She was a rising star in the U.S. Attorney's Office. I don't know if, Rob, you were in Massachusetts when this happened. But she lied to a federal judge once about a relatively minor issue. They roasted her with a flamethrower. I mean, all of us in the defense bar knew she screwed up and deserved, she got punished. We all agreed she should be punished, but even we were feeling a little sorry for her because we thought what she lied about it was material, but it wasn't, yeah, she should be fired and she was, but she shouldn't have had her license pulled. They pulled her license.
Yeah, there are thousands of attorneys out there that have lost their licenses and lost their careers and what have you. But if you work for Trump, if you're part of MAGA, apparently you're allowed to do these things that everybody else is not allowed to do. And that's a horrible thing, but that seems to be what the facts show. Let's hope I'm wrong. I'd love to be proven wrong on that. Please.
So before we get into this other question about the DOJ and them able to find one person to come on their side on this topic, so last week on the show, and I've seen people, we're going to get into something about the military doing something that we've never seen before, but there is some other group out there right now that is also doing something that we have never seen before in the history of any president. And it started after the State of the Union address when President Trump made the threat to impeach judges because they simply did not agree with his policies. And what we saw and what we've now seen we've seen it on 5 instances in the last month. The ABA, the American Bar Association, has released major statements. And on the first statement they released, on the eve of that release, the next day was the day that Justice Roberts kind of went against Trump. Even though he gave Trump the pen to write what he wrote, Justice Roberts made a decision that Trump was not happy with. And I felt like when the ABA released that statement, it was a call to every lawyer and every judge, hey, this is where you came from. If you're a judge or a lawyer right now, you need to remember this is where you came from. And when you read it, it was almost like, don't forget where you came from, because making bad decisions is, and as this has gone on, the ABA has released statements. As soon as Trump says something crazy, ABA statement. ABA statement. I'm going to go with you until Ken comes back. Your thoughts, because R Squared, we haven't seen the ABA release any statements under any president in the history of presidents. The fact that the ABA is very vocal right now, what are your thoughts on that, and what does that tell you?
So this is an unprecedented situation, which is why you see things that we haven't seen ever, or at least on a regular basis. And, you know, what Chief Justice Roberts was saying and others have said is throughout our history, since we created the judiciary with the Judiciary Act of, what was it, 1796, Ken, something like that. So that's a lot of time. I won't do the math. That's not my strong suit. Someone else can do it. But we have had judges, regardless of who has appointed them, regardless of their ideology, trying to do the right thing in interpreting laws and applying the rule of law and making sound rulings. And that's why federal judges have historically enjoyed, an appointment for life, because they're not supposed to be loyal to anybody. They're supposed to apply the law based on their legitimate ideological viewpoints. Sometimes we agree, sometimes we disagree, but, they were doing their job. And now we have an administration, and he did it before, and he's doing it more so now, that anytime a judge gives a ruling that may be 100% in accordance with the law and the facts and everything else, but just happens to be against Trump because he and his administration are doing plainly illegal things or improper things that judges should strike down. And these are Republican judges as well as Democratic judges who, it shouldn't matter who appointed them, but it's judges who have been appointed by both sides who are uniformly striking these things down. They are attacking the judges, saying they're so-called judges and they're biased and they're this, that, and the other thing. And they're trying to have them all impeached and what have you. That is so against our system. It's undemocratic. It's un-American. It is against the rule of law. It is what tyranny is about. People might get sick of us talking about authoritarianism, but that is what Project 2025 is. That is what Trump believes in. He's always believed in this. This is not a new thing. He's always been a follower of authoritarianism. And so it's not an accident. And when you start undermining the judiciary in this way, that is a very, very dangerous step towards what he's trying to do. And so the ABA had to make a statement. Chief Justice Roberts had to make a statement. And the American public and first of all, the cowards in Congress, the Republicans who just go along with this, somebody needs to stand up for this. And maybe the time will come soon, but it better not be too late, because this is an area that we you don't fool around here. And it's never happened in our history before. Yes, people can criticize a ruling, absolutely criticize a ruling. Go for it. Appeal it, criticize it, but you have to respect the judiciary. Now, if there's evidence of wrongdoing, then by all means we impeach the judge, but that's very rare. It's only happened a couple of times in our entire history.
13 times since the 70s. I posted when I did my homework to call somebody out. So, Ken, your thoughts on the fact that we're seeing this? We're talking right now. We're getting into these topics of things that we have never seen in the history of a president. Ken, your thoughts on the ABA pretty much releasing statements that are pretty much telling guys like you, hey, remember where your bread and butter comes from. We put you in that lawyer seat. We put you in as a judge. Remember, and as just as Mr. Roberts said, hey, there's an appellate court for that. That's what he told Trump. You can't just impeach people because they didn't agree with you. There's an appellate court for that. And he wasn't happy, and like I said, the ABA has released 5 humongous, powerful statements, Ken. So your thoughts on the ABA releasing these statements?
Okay, a couple of things. The ABA has always been a rather conservative, I'm not talking political, and basically, when I mean old line conservative, they keep their mouths shut. They believe only in dealing with the legal issues. When they come out and say that, that's something to listen to, because they're saying they're picking a fight. And they just generally don't do that. They believe to be nonpartisan. They believe their job is to protect the best interests of the legal profession. Sometimes I agree with them, sometimes I don't. But this is a huge wake-up call, and especially also for Judge Roberts, who's coming in telling Trump to knock the crap off. But as Rob said so eloquently, this is exactly what authoritarians do. They eliminate anyone who will stand in their way. Right now, our Congress is basically rolling over and playing dead for Trump. They're not objecting to anything he's doing. It's interesting to note that Trump has not even tried to put forth a legislative agenda. He hasn't even tried. He's ruling by executive fiat. And pretty much every judge has told him to go bleep himself.
Yeah. Yep.
And now, of course, he's threatening them with impeachment because they're not doing what he wants them to do. Trump doesn't understand the system. He never has. He's not a product of the system. Remember, he never held elective office prior to being elected the first time. He doesn't understand. He's not an institutionalist. As a quote, a good friend of mine, he's a used car salesman from Queens. That's all he is. He has no understanding of public policy, no understanding of public administration, and he's pissing everybody off. And frankly, I think it's a little too little, too late. I think we've let Trump go too far, and I think people are starting to stand up. I hope to God that we caught him just in time. I do remember that famous cliche, "Thank God for the last minute, or nothing will ever get done around here." Mm-hmm. And maybe we are at the last minute, and people have just decided to wake up and take care of business. I'm seeing events like Cory Booker for his longest, going up there and telling Chuck Schumer to sit down and shut up. He's got the floor, which is great. Kathleen Clark, one of our reps here in Massachusetts, who's my rep, has basically set out a number of emails to her constituents saying, this is what we're doing. We're not standing by. We're getting organized. And it's the pushback. But it's very, very dangerous. Our beloved speaker, whose name I will not issue or say, wasn't a veiled threat, it was an absolute threat to reduce the size of the judiciary if they kept blocking Donald Trump. And remind everyone the judiciary serves the executive. Of course, everyone jumped on him real ugly and said, no, they're a co-equal branch of government. But that's how these people think. They think their job in the judiciary is to carry out their orders, and they don't understand that. And son, all I can say, this is how revolutions start. Blood on the floor.
It's getting pretty interesting. Like I said, I tell people, read more into these. Don't just skim the headlines. When you see things like the ABA releasing statements that you've never seen before, this is the type of stuff that you really need to pay attention to. Now, they got lucky. They were able to find someone within the DOJ, because they placed a lot of their people in the DOJ, to come out now, and they've now lifted the block that was not allowing him to fire the civil service chair that we talked about last month. This DOJ says that Trump is allowed to fire her from her position and others, but there was a but in this stipulation in regards to part of the reason why is because when you blocked it, it affects other judges and other things of that sort. So they were looking for more opinions on this, Matt. I'm not sure if you guys are up on this one with the DOJ R².
Yeah, I mean, look, this is, if you're talking about the labor board position,
yes.
You know what, this again, the problem that we have here is an unprecedented, I call it an abuse of power, but let's say it's a legitimate use of power, because the court said he has the authority. We haven't had presidents try to do something like this in the past, which means we haven't looked at whether or not we needed a remedy or a safeguard or some kind of limitation in the statute that does it. Because historically, presidents have respected the fact that a lot of these federal boards are supposed to be bipartisan. You can't pack them with one side or the other. And so you have people who serve beyond whoever's appointed them. And, you know, there's sometimes the statute requires an even balance. Sometimes, you know, they just, you add and subtract as people go. And so what Trump is doing is saying, as the, you know, he believes in the theory of the unitary executive. And if I start talking about it, Ken will get his pillow out. So we won't we won't go into detail about that. That's something for a con law class. But it's a huge thing with the Project 2025, as long as they're in power. If the Democrats tried to do it, they'd suddenly be completely against it. But the idea is that the president, as the unitary executive, can do anything he wants with the executive branch, including firing anybody he wants that's part of the executive branch for no cause whatsoever, because he's the solitary authority. And so that's what's happening here. Other presidents have not done that. There have been some controversies about filling vacancies sometimes, and courts have had to weigh in on those. But those have been settled, and you have precedents of those. In this particular case, Trump is trying to fire all those who were appointed by Biden or other Democrats, and that has not been the practice. Technically, the law doesn't prohibit it under the theory of the unitary executive. So this is a new area. The courts are not, you know, obviously this initial ruling was not favorable to what I call the rule of law side of the House. But, you know, we'll see what the Supreme Court eventually says about it.
Yeah, there was some discrepancy there. They said that even though that this was allowed, it says that there is a precedent law that was set that it conflicts with, and they have to go over this conflicting thing before they move on. So they're letting the courts. This is still going to go through the court system. It's still probably going to end up in the hands of SCOTUS, but it's something definitely to keep the eyes on. Now, last week, people, you all saw the story, and here's the thing. You know, last month when these guys were on, we talked about Tom Homan's numbers not being up, and it was a disgrace. These numbers of ICE. So what has happened, people? And here's how they do it. All of a sudden, we're not. Our numbers are up now, but guess what? We're not focusing on criminals anymore. We're now picking up people like this woman here in Somerville, who was snatched up. Granted, she's a pro-Palestinian, but the reason why she comes to this country is to learn and be able to exercise her freedom of speech. Now, this woman wrote a school paper on her opinion, which she's allowed because she's pro-Palestinian. It wasn't violent. Some professors that have read her paper said it was very professional. It was done the way that she should have done it. But guess what? This woman had went home, visited her family. She's coming back. She's doing her fasting for Ramadan. she's coming out of her fast, and she's decided that I'm going to go meet some friends and head off to the school where she is a volunteer as a school assistant. And guess what? She's grabbed up and snatched up by all of these ICE agents who I haven't seen one minority in these ICE agents. It's almost like the German Reich coming in to pick people up off the streets. It's pretty scary. Ken, you're an immigration attorney. This woman had her immigration attorney. I see Full Diesel. Get ready to go. She had her immigration attorney on the phone because these people, and let's be honest, a lot of these people who are here on legal visas have been in touch with their immigration attorneys because they're in fear. They've been in fear since this whole regime started. They snatched this woman up. She wasn't allowed to call anybody. Wasn't even allowed to call anybody. It wasn't until 24 hours later her immigration attorney found out that she was she's in this detention center in Louisiana. Then we have these these El Salvadorians across the country who are being rounded up and put down into this max prison. And now this max prison is saying, hey, some of these El Salvadorians that you're sending to us in regards to having certain tattoos and stuff, they're not members of this gang. There's a guy that was snatched up here and accused of being in this El Salvadorian gang. The tattoo he has is to represent a soccer team, an FC soccer team. It has nothing to do. His wife is on TV, and she's saying that he's never been in a gang. Ken, these are people with no criminal records, yet you're saying they're connected to criminal organizations or How can ICE start snatching innocent people off the street as they're doing? Because I feel like this is headed towards a lawsuit. At the end of the day, you're an immigration attorney. I'm letting you go on this one.
Well, the short answer is they can't. They're violating the law. I'm not going to get into the requirements. Let me explain to you. ICE it was a baby agent. Before ICE became ICE, it was part of the INS. It was a backwater agency that is where people who wanted to be federal law enforcement agencies and couldn't qualify went there. They've always been the dumping ground of the federal bureaucracy. Oh yeah, they're known as. They look They look the part. They don't look professional. They've always been known as a backwater.
I'm like, how the hell is this person ICE?
No,
they don't look the part at all.
They're clowns, and they think and I said this before on the show, and I'll say it again. They think they're law enforcement. They are not law enforcement. They are administrative agency personnel. That's it. They can't carry weapons. They're not allowed to carry firearms, and they're not allowed. They have a limited authority of detention with civil warrants. Keyword there. Civil warrants, not criminal. I'm not bothered because I don't want to have Rob go to sleep on me again.
You've explained it. You've explained it on this show before.
They're not allowed to do this. Okay, they're not allowed to do that. What they need to get is an immigration warrant to bring you to an immigration court. This is clearly wrong. It's clearly illegal. This is kidnapping under color of law, which is a violation of federal law. It's also a violation of several UN treaties, which I won't bother to get into. And they're targeting people of color. Now, as for this individual, let me just say, full disclosure out there, I'm a Zionist, okay? Hardcore Zionist. I have no respect for these pro-Hamas, pro-Palestinian, bleeps, okay? They all burn in hell, okay? Now, that being said, this was so wrong. She didn't do anything. She didn't advocate violence. She didn't advocate the violent overthrow of the government or the Israeli government. She produced a paper, which, by the way, I disagree with because it's online and I've read it, and she's factually wrong. And if you want to debate that, we'll do that another day. Mm-hmm. But there was nothing in that paper that would violate her immigration status. She is allowed to publish scholarly works and opinion pieces under her visa. Whether you agree or disagree with them, that's an issue for another day. But she was not in violation of her status.
Well, they're saying that she made herself a threat. That's right from Tom Holman.
No. A threat under U.S. immigration law is very narrowly defined. And you have to be explicit in your threat to person, property, or a government. Simply advocating for change or accusing a government of fascistic or violation of human rights while wrong is not a threat. You're just wrong. And first of all, she should have been detained in Louisiana. She should have been brought to the Boston IC, which is in the JFK building downtown. And if you guys want to take a field trip one day, I'll take you there. I'll show you where it is.
So did you guys hear the lie did you hear why they were able to send her to Louisiana and why they were able to send those people right to? They used the military. They said because the military is overseeing these deportations, right. They said once they're in possession of the military, they don't have to follow the regular law of the land.
Right. Well,
that was the excuse they gave.
Well, first of all, there's something called posse comitatus.
Mm-hmm.
And that forbids the U.S. government from using the military for law enforcement purposes, number one. Number two, the military isn't allowed to get involved because the lead agency for immigration proceedings is ICE and CPB, Customs and Border Protection. In every statute, an agency is deemed to be the lead. These are people responsible for it. They can ask for help from other agencies, but they're the lead, and they got to follow their own internal procedures. They're not following their own internal procedures. So because if he showed up in front of an immigration judge, he would have thrown it out in 2.5 seconds.
So squared, you're calling BS on them saying that once these people are transferred to military to transferred to these prisons, that's a BS?
Yeah, two points, because Ken already outlined this pretty well. First of all, even if they could use the military for logistical support, that doesn't change federal law. The military would be part of federal law. It is part of the federal government, and it would be whenever the military supports the federal government, whether it's Homeland Security or FEMA or anything else, federal law applies and the military applies it. You don't lose your rights just because the military is providing logistical support. So that's again one of those complete dishonest statements that people are making in court.
Thank you.
That's what Kristen said. Yeah,
our listeners may not know that. The lawyers sure as hell do. Now,
well, Kaylee, the press secretary, that was the excuse she gave because it was asked.
Well,
it was
she's
asked.
The liar in chief. She, the only thing you know about Kaylee is she doesn't know the truth because she's never said it. But the fact of the matter is, what I wanted to share on this, my point on this is not about the substance of this woman. It's the violation of due process. I really don't care if she gets deported, but you have to follow due process. And what I mean by that is if they want to say that she violated the terms of her visa or violated federal law in some way, then they have to define what that violation is. There's a process. And the fact is that if she did do something that was wrong, then you have to charge her with that. You have to put that in the paperwork so that she can respond to it in front of an immigration judge before you can send her away. And there may be something, right? Maybe they have evidence that she did do something that's a violation, but you have to demonstrate it. You can't just pretend. You can't just say, oh, she did something and we sent her away. There's something called the rule of law in this country, and it still exists at least for a few more days.
All right. If I may piggyback on Rob's comment.
Go for
it. If you are a person who is here, who has been inspected and is here on a visa, or if you're not here on a visa, and the government seeks to remove you from the country, they begin the process by giving you what's called an NTA, a notice to appear. That's the formal charging document. That says
exactly
this is what you did. This is why it's wrong. These are the statutes you violated. You then go to what we call a master calendar hearing, or MCH. That's basically your arraignment, where you're formally charged and you're given your rights to have an attorney, and you're put it down for an individual hearing or an IH at a future date. And then the decision is whether they're going to bond you out or not. That's the procedure. Now, under U.S. law, you're supposed to go to the closest immigration court you are to where you were either arrested or where you're living. Now, you can you can be sent to other immigration courts in your region based on overflow issues. Like, for example, Massachusetts is in Region 1. We have courts. We have immigration courts in Boston, Worcester, and Providence, Rhode Island. They can move cases between those three courts all the time and do it all the time. Your immigration lawyer can ask the case be transferred to another court for various reasons. Or the TA, the trial attorney, the government's attorney can do that. But you got to file a written motion with the IJ, the immigration judge, which is part of the Executive Office of Immigration review, or EOR, as we call it.
Wow. See, this is why I got you guys on this show. Great stuff. Let's close out the legal booth, head into Trump troubles. In the Trump troubles, President Trump is still scrambling from Signal Gate. This is going to be going to my man Squid, retired U.S. Colonel, also JAG officer. Signal Gate was just horrendous. Horrendous. You know, first the story comes out. You know, the report is very professional. Really doesn't say anything. The Atlantic backs him. They're pretty quiet. Pete has guest lands at the airport, and he's questioned. All of a sudden, Pete Hegseth is questioned on it. And he just absolutely drags this reporter through the mud. Just destroys his character, says all this stuff. And then the Atlantic, and I'm pretty sure the Atlantic says, hey, you know, we can't have this happen because you represent us. And we know what you have because you brought it to our, so, hey, this is where it goes down. So the Atlantic releases part of the text message, which shows Hegseth is a liar. We've already known this guy is a liar. We've already known this guy's a dirtbag. So they release it. Fast forward now, they're doing damage control. They get into their hearings. And while Hegseth and Patel and they're all sitting there and they're in these hearings, they're asked, was there any war information in these texts? All three of these April Fools say, no, there was no discussion of any kind in this text. Blah, blah, blah. So guess what happens? Atlantic stands by the reporter and says, hey, we're releasing the whole damn thing now. And they release it. And guess what? Liars. Again, all of them. Liars. And I'm going to send this over to, because there's a lot of people whose eyes have been opened. A lot. Let's realize this. There's a lot of veterans who did vote for Trump. But there are things that have happened in this country right now where we have this term now, hashtag FAFO. And what that is, if you don't know what it is, fuck around and find out. And there are a lot of people who voted for President Trump right now who are going through this whole fuck around and find out. And some of those are veterans, because I did see a lot of veterans who are now pissed at the fact that war discussions were had on this Signal chat when it shouldn't have been, and you lied about it. So I'm going to go to my guy. I'm going right to my U.S. veteran right here. Squid, thank you for your service. I'm going to let you stew, because you did write articles on this fast and furious as this stuff was coming out. You were heated. You were a heated guy.
Well, look, because again, it's rampant dishonesty. There's no good faith here. Okay. Everybody on that chat knew what they were doing was wrong for two reasons. They knew that they were talking about sensitive, classified, whatever label you want to put on it. They were talking about information that was improper to be talked about in a public forum on an unsecured communications platform. Plain and simple. They all knew it, and they chose to do it. They also, obviously, in addition to talking about classified information in an unclassified manner, they chose to use this chat thing instead of, they all have government phones, by the way. When you're in a leadership position, even when you're not in a leadership position, you have a government issued phone. You also have access to, if not issued personally, a secured government phone. And so they had the ability, number one, to do this through proper secured communications mechanisms, multiple platforms. They could have used their secured email accounts. They could have used their secured phones, but they didn't. And they did it intentionally because all of them agreed to do it this way. Now, every member of Congress knows this because they are briefed on the same, and they have the same rules. If they want to talk about any of this, they have to go to the basement, to the SCIF, the secured facility, to have even a conversation about it. They can't have a conversation in their office about it. A private one in a private office, no. You have to be in a SCIF, okay? So every member of Congress, including all the Republicans who were lying through their teeth saying there was nothing wrong with this, they all know that they're lying to the American people. And so there's the reason that this is important is for a couple of reasons. Number one, you have thousands of people who have lost their careers over the year because they've done something less serious than this, a security violation less serious than this. What would normally happen is if there was even just the allegation, you would immediately have your security clearance suspended pending an investigation. And when the investigation shows any impropriety, you lose your security clearance. You would also face disciplinary action. That disciplinary action could be simply administrative. It could be criminal. It could be a job termination. It all depends on civilian versus military, but anybody could be technically prosecuted. I'm not saying that's the first choice, but the more serious, the higher the punishment. And so people have been prosecuted for these type of offenses. They've certainly been fired for these type of offenses, and they definitely have all lost their security clearances and access to sensitive information for things. And again, far less serious than this transgression. And this was not an accident. They did it on purpose. Now, the other thing is they used Signal for two reasons. Number one, it's not a government platform, which means it doesn't save the communications. And if you look at it, it was designed that the communications would disappear. That's why they use WhatsApp, and that's why they use Snapchat, and not WhatsApp, Snapchat, I meant, and Signal and these other ones, because the information disappears. It doesn't get preserved. The Records Act, we've talked about this on the show before. This is what Trump violated when he stole thousands of documents to Mar-a-Lago. Is the Records Act requires that whenever you are conducting government business, you must do it on a government platform, email, phone, etc., because there has to be a record of it. That's what the law says. And this is not a new law. This has been around for generations. And that's why you have the National Archives. And that's why we have presidential libraries and the Library of Congress and all these places where copies of official records can be deposited. That's what FOIA is for, the Freedom of Information Act, so the American public can get access to things when they've been, declassified or if they're not classified in the first place. And so what the Trump administration, they did this in the first term, so they're definitely doing it now, and this is evidence of it, is intentionally using private communications so that there's no record that they even had the communication, and certainly no record of the substance of it. This is so that the American people will never know what they're doing and who they're doing it with. That should startle everybody, because you can imagine if we found out about this because Jeffrey Goldberg was accidentally included on it, how many other such conversations have happened. And they might not all be classified. Obviously, classified stuff is important and serious because of the threat that it poses to national security. But also, we, the American people, are being denied the historical records of what the administration is doing now and in the future, because it will never exist. If you remember, Trump, from his first term, refuses to maintain the White House visitors log. Nobody's allowed to know who comes to see him in the Oval. He's the first president to ever do that, and it's a violation of the law. He uses his private cell phone instead of the White House communications. He has the best communications in the world. He has an operator that can get him in seconds access to anybody on the phone he wants to, but he uses his personal cell phone so that nobody even knows what calls he's made, let alone who he's talking to and what they're talking about. They use personal email, not President Trump, but the rest of the administration used their personal email. In fact, what came out today was the National Security Advisor, Waltz, and others have been using their personal Gmail accounts to have similar conversations. They're not using their government accounts, and they're all doing it to violate the records laws. Okay, this is an incredibly serious thing, and that's why I wrote about it, and that's why something has to happen. This is not partisanship, right? I thought from day one Pete Hegseth was not only the most unqualified selection for a cabinet position in the history of the country, but he was a danger to national security, and this is why. Why.
Let's get into this next topic. Anything you want to add to that before I get in, Ken?
Yes, very briefly to say this is, if this had been done by some, low-rank PFC or some airmen in the Air Force, or some seaman recruits, they would have had his guts for garters. I have spoken to a number of veterans. All of them have security clearance. Rob knows one of the ones I'm talking about. And they've all said the same thing, that if they had done that, not only would their careers be over, and not only were they looking at, sanctions, but they'd probably be looking at jail time. I had one person who was a combat vet and said, who was a Marine combat vet, and he said, if he's lucky, he'd be looking at jail time. If he was unlucky, a bunch of us would have found him and left him out in the desert with no clothes and a new hole in his head, because that endangered our lives. One of the things one of the things anyone in the military would tell you is about operational security. Loose lips sink ships. You don't need to know. You don't want to know. One person once told me.
And you know what?
So,
that's a good segue. Was there something else you wanted to add?
No, that's it. That's
a good segue into this next topic, because Hegseth is out now also under fire, and I hear all these people saying he's allowed. No. Hegseth is also under fire because he took his wife with him to meetings with foreign officials to discuss military stuff. Now I hear people say, well, Joe Biden went with, well, first of all, Joe Biden was the first lady. Okay. And she did her own thing if Joe met with foreign officials about military stuff. Joe Biden was not part of this. Then someone said, well, Hunter Biden was part of the, no. Hunter Biden was never part of any military foreign meetings and conversations. So we can stop that shit right there. Right there. The big issue here is that Hegseth brought his wife to these meetings. We have no idea if his wife is compromised. We have no idea who she is. She has no clearances, and she is on these. I guess they keep a record of who goes, and she was at these meetings. She's not supposed to be there. I'm gonna let the military guy talk about this one too, because this is another big one.
Yeah, first of all, if I'm pretty certain, I can't keep all of Higgs' wives, straight at this point, but I believe this wife was a Fox News producer.
Okay.
So what she does with the information, I'm not saying that because she works for a news agency, she's automatically going to leak information. I will tell you this: spouse travel in the government is very limited, right? The president is always allowed to bring the first lady, but the first lady, like you just said, has a separate itinerary. They go do outreach to children. They go do social things. It's visibility. It's feel good kind of stuff. They're not part of any substantive meetings. And, every first lady has traveled with the president. And if we have a first gentleman at some point, it'll be the same thing. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Government officials, for some reason, are allowed to bring their spouses or their families. J.D. Vance brings his entire family to Greenland. I don't know why. And, Hegseth was bringing people. I don't know who he has kids with, but, or how many. But I don't think he's up to Nick Cannon level, but he's getting there. And, so the fact of the matter is that, I'm going to treat people with the respect they deserve because of how they conduct themselves. I'm sorry. That's just the way it is. And the fact is that, even if, he should bring his wife somewhere, the fact that she was in the meetings is a violation of the law. It's a violation of security clearances. It's a violation of a number of things. And don't think he doesn't know that. He just doesn't care. This is how the administration is operating. They think that they're immune from accountability. They think, because you remember, they fired all the inspectors general. They fired all the Department of Justice people. Who's going to hold them accountable? Congress won't hold a hearing until the Democrats take over. And even then it might be a circus. I'm not, because there'll be so much to catch up on. So they're just acting with impunity. And we, the American people, are sitting back and watching.
And it's funny because, when I talked about him getting nominated back then, one of the things that came up about this was, how is this guy getting this position when he never even got above a security he never got even above a regular clearance, let alone. So there was reasons there. Anything you want to add to this one, Ken?
No, nothing is covered very well.
All right, cool. And since you mentioned Greenland, but before we get into Greenland, J.D. Vance was actually the only one to kind of come out unscathed in this Signal Gate. But here where he was unscathed because I've said this on the show. there's going to be a point in time where the real J.D. Vance is going to show up. And when you read these text messages, out of all the April Fools in this text messaging signal chat, J.D. Vance was the only person with common sense to the point where MAGA caucus is now questioning the loyalty of J.D. Vance to Trump. They're now worried about J.D. Vance because of his actions and the things he said in this signal chat. We've talked about this on the show because he was critical of Trump heading into this, but when Trump asked him to be VP, he sold his soul to the devil and became over to the dark side. J.D. Vance is still that person who talked all that stuff prior to being asked. And eventually, like I said, there comes a time when common sense kind of kicks in. And he made a comment in this signal chat about the president. That's very critical. So you guys, thoughts real quick on J.D. Vance, the vice president, showing his true side in this signal chat?
Well, got to remember, J.D. Vance was never a Trumper. J.D. Vance was someone that the money sections, the Elon Musk people, brought in to the Trump administration. So he's never been a Trumper. And J.D. Vance cares about one thing and one thing only, and that's J.D. Vance. He's more than happy to use the MAGA maggots to advance his own career, but he doesn't give a damn about them. He's basically Trump if Trump had actually had two brain cells to run together. And that ain't saying much, but so I'm not surprised he's trashing Trump because he was never a Trump guy. He's not loyal to Trump. He's loyal to himself. And the money people went to Trump and said, we'll keep funding your campaign, but we want J.D. Vance in there.
Squid?
Yeah, same thing. I don't disagree with any of that. I think that, I'm not even sure he was that critical of President Trump. I think he was trying to figure out where the authority to act was on this, because remember, these folks were acting, and the question is, the president's the one who has to order the strike. Did the president actually order it? And so he ordered it in principle, but it looks like they were acting independently, somewhat autonomously. Now, granted, he approved of it. He certainly approved of it after the fact because it was successful, but he wanted plausible deniability in case it failed, that the president could have then thrown them all under the bus and said, I didn't know about this. I didn't approve it. Well, he did. He told them to do it. He just didn't get involved in it because he can't understand it. He doesn't understand the planning, the information, all the stuff that they had to discuss with the go or no go decision. He doesn't understand. So he empowered them to go ahead. So, maybe J.D. Vance cast a little light on that, on Trump's lack of competence, but I don't know that it was intentional. And I think, calling his loyalty to Trump into question by the MAGA people is a little bit silly.
Well, this is the MAGA people themselves are the ones that are bringing it up. So that's
what I'm saying. It just shows how ignorant they are.
Yeah. Chris Gagny says Snapchat disappears, yet he gets memories on Snapchat daily. That's funny. I like that one. Also, Trump. Also, let's get into this too real quick. What is up with threatening military attacks on our allies? From Canada to Panama and now Greenland. If Greenland doesn't support and ask to become part of the USA, he's not ruling out military. Squid, this is never going to happen. So why even effing mention it?
This is Trump's plan. He's been doing it for a long time. It's called trolling, which you all have heard of before. Mm-hmm. He throws these silly things out there because people will spend time talking about it and ignoring all the things he's doing to the economy, the tariffs, the cost of living going up instead of down, all the things that people would vote against him on and vote against Republicans on. They're forgetting about because they're too busy talking about the silly Greenland story. And that's
but when do you
doing.
Take that stuff serious, though? Greenland. Exactly, but when do you kind of say, is this guy serious?
I don't.
Ken?
I'm caught between a rock and a hard place on this one. Number one, I agree with everything Rob says. This is strictly a distraction maneuver. But the second time is, I think we need to take everything he says seriously because he's so freaking crazy. Maybe he does do this one time. Because he's a nutbird. He has no understanding of anything. He's an impetuous child who's been handed a machine gun.
he should be soundly criticized, but we shouldn't be spending time. This shouldn't be the dominant story in the news cycle. The dominant story should be the failing economy and the attacks on the judiciary and everything. But my point is that I would hope, and I still believe it to be true, that the Pentagon would never allow him to, violate domestic and international law by an unlawful attack on Greenland, Canada, Panama, or what have you.
So I got to ask you. Go ahead, Ken.
I agree with that, because one of the things, and I think Rob can speak to this more than I can, the military has a huge bureaucratic decision-making tree. Things got to go through the National Command Authority. So, I mean, if he decides one day he wants to invade Greenland, he can't just call up the 82nd Airborne and say, hey, go invade Greenland. No, he's got to call the Secretary of Defense. He's got to call the Army Chief, the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. They got to. So, I mean, it's not going to happen overnight. And by the time they can slow it down to the point that maybe someone talks to him and said, knock it off, sir. This is not going to happen.
So my question to Rob is, it is crazy talk, but how does that affect us with relations with other countries, though? When you show this type of actions, and other countries are going to say, okay, he may be talking out his ass, but we're going to not give information to you people. Does this hurt us behind the scenes when it comes to, getting information through the CIA and things of that stuff? When you got him doing all this crazy talk, does this hurt us behind the scenes in regards to things like CIA operations, FBI, where countries are saying, hey, we're pulling this back. We don't know where this guy stands. We don't know where he stands.
It is incredibly harmful to our relationships with friends and allies as well as adversaries. Because number one, they think that they know that he's an incompetent nut job, and so they don't even know, they just placate him because you can't have any substantive conversation with him. He doesn't know anything. He can't articulate anything. He doesn't have any policies to advocate for. So all he knows is that he wants to be hateful of everybody. He's just jealous of everybody because he's not a legitimate leader, and everybody he deals with, most of them are. And so the fact is he's just spiteful. And so, our allies around the world are not going to share intelligence with us because they don't trust him with it. And they don't trust some of these people with it now that you see, what's going on with what we just talked about with Signal and what have you. So, yeah, we are not going to get the level of intelligence sharing that we have relied upon for our national security with our NATO allies, our other allies in the Pacific, Israel and others are all hesitant. So they'll share some, but they won't share to the extent that they have been. And that's gonna harm us in our national security. And of course, it harms us in our international relations because you can't deal with a guy like this.
Damn, and that's where I'm at. That's where I'm scared. That's where I'm scared, because when you start losing that critical line of information, and then here we go, Marjorie Taylor Greene, bad week for her. She was silenced at a hearing for rule violations. She got in there. She talked about Eric Swalwell and his relationship with a Chinese spy. She got shut down on that, and then she called Alejandro Mayorkas a liar, which was a violation of the rules of the floor. And they had to stop, they had to pause, they had to go in and check the ruling, and come to find out what she did was wrong. She violated, and because of this, she lost her time. She couldn't speak. She was silenced. She lost her time. She couldn't speak. She was kicked out. And this was, I believe, the second time now that she has overcrossed her boundaries, and she was silenced. But here's the other thing that I got to get into is that, she then comes out of this and she gets questioned by a British reporter, and the British reporter says to her, ask her this question, and she turns around and in typical MAGA fashion, she deflects, doesn't want to answer the question, and attacks this British reporter and says, are you from America? No, she says, go back to your country. I'm not answering that question. And pretty much bullies the hell out of this poor woman. Then she goes to this American reporter and says, what is your question? I'll answer you. And this is where I say to people, you need to really pay attention to the things that we see, not just on the surface. This American reporter says, yeah, I'm going to ask you a question. I want you to answer the question she posed to you. And this spoke to me in volumes, the situation we have right now with the White House press corps. they're under attack, and we see it daily. You talked about Kylie giving all these crazy misinformation out there. The press has to stick together right now. That's what we're seeing. The press really has to stick together because they've implanted their own press people. They've got this hard right agenda that's in there as in the press corps now that have never been allowed in there. So they're getting a lot of that information. They're getting a lot of. But what are you guys' thoughts on this, Ken? Your thoughts on seeing this pushback from the press itself finally?
I think it's about goddamn time. Thank God. It's been a long time coming, and it's good. This is exactly what the press should do. They are the fourth estate. They are the people to push back against you when you do bullcrap. And I think these MAGA maggots don't understand that, and that's why they're getting offended, and they have no answers for them. They're used to being in their own little oh God, I don't know what's called echo chamber. I think that's the best way I can describe it. And then when they got challenged, they don't know what to do, and they're looking like the fools they are.
And some of these press corps meetings and hearings that we're seeing on TV, they've already got the answers to blow them out the water, as we've seen with her at the press corps. She's had some questions come to her, and she'll deliver these answers with her Third Reich Stepford wife smile on their face, and then they come right back and like, well, not exactly, because she made a comment about France, and she said if it wasn't for us, France would be speaking Germany right now. And she had the big smile, gloating. And the reporter says, well, to be honest, the French helped us in the British Revolution. So what are you talking about? And she had absolutely no answer. R-Squared, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good line, because obviously the French helped us with our independence. And, I think World War II was more significant for the world, but obviously both are. So, it's just silly. It's just silly. It's trolling.
It's craziness. It's craziness. And I can't believe that these people are falling for it. But as we close this out tonight, I got to go to Rob. And this video, if you guys haven't seen it, I let these guys watch it before we went on the air because they hadn't seen it yet. So if you guys didn't know, the Army Chorus was to perform at the White House Governor's Ball last month, towards the end of last month. And the Army Chorus decided to perform a song from Les Mis. The song they performed, if you didn't see it, you need to go and look it up, search it. And I want people to look in the comments from veterans. Look in the comments from those who served. And what you might think is just a great performance by the Army Chorus is an outright protest of President Trump to his face, that he didn't even know that this was happening in front of him. And it made me think about our guy down here, Rob Resnick, military, retired U.S. Army Colonel, JAG officer. And when Rob came on this show, Rob was very professional. Rob respected his commanders-in-chief. We've had times where we had questions on this show where Rob, respectfully answered in a way where he says, I can't answer that because, I still got to respect my commander. And we respected that. We respected those answers. But as COVID came along and this craziness, and we started seeing Rob torn. And as you see tonight on this show, Rob speaks and I commend him. Rob speaks very freely and gives his opinion on this administration now. And that he's retired now, so he can do that, but he's still at times, like I said, he respected. But now we're seeing the Army Chorus get up here and protest openly. And Rob, as a military guy, to see this happen in the open at a time when this was one, frowned upon, two, you were told never to do things like this. I'm going to start with you first. Your thoughts on something of this in the open like this. It speaks volumes, and we're not talking out our asses on this show. We're telling people these are the things you really need to pay attention to, because it's telling us the situation that's going on in this country. Like Rob just said, some of this stuff is silliness. We shouldn't even really be talking. These are the things I feel like we need to pay attention to. It speaks volumes. R-Squared.
Yeah, first, you know, I don't know if we'll ever know for certain why they chose the song or who, reviewed the choice. I think it's fair to assume that it was intentional because it's awfully random and awfully coincidental if it was not chosen, as a message to the president. I just don't know. It'll be interesting to see now that this is becoming a story and the president may feel that he was targeted by it. There may be some accountability going the wrong direction here. And maybe we will find out if it was a deliberate decision and how it was made. In other words, at what level it was made. I think we have to assume that it was. Why would that have been done then? It's obviously not the proper tradition because we're in uncharted waters or uncharted territory, however you want, whatever cliche you want to use. We have never in our history, despite some challenges and problematic leaders in the White House and Congress in history, because we've had plenty, we have never had a threat to our democracy, our Constitution, our way of life. We've just never had a threat like this. And we should have learned better after his first term, but we didn't. Too many American people decided that, well, we'll save that for another time. We've already talked about it. Mm-hmm. And the military, remember, the oath that I took many times with each promotion and that the oath that everybody in uniform takes is to the Constitution and to uphold freedom and the rule of law. And that's what democracy is. We're not loyal to any person. We're not loyal to any leader. We're not loyal to any party. We're not loyal to any ideology. We're loyal to the Constitution of the United States and our democratic republic. That's what we're loyal to. And so when you see a president that from day one is following the authoritarian playbook and transforming this country before our eyes into a third world joke, an authoritarian regime. And remember what he did. He fired really good leaders in the military, people who were respected. And not just the generals that you heard about, the chiefs of staff that he fired. He was firing all kinds of people. And people in the military eventually have to react to that they're seeing that the institution that they're proud to serve, the uniform they're proud to wear, the job they're proud to do, the sacrifice they're willing to make for all of us is going to be for nothing. It's going to be for nothing. And that's because of Trump being allowed to do what he's doing. And so it's only a matter of time before you see open dissent. Now, some of us may initially smile at that and say, good, it's about time. The military is credible. They need to stand up, whatever. The problem is once we change the precedent, once we change the protocol, you could have an ideological response to a democratic president. It's not the same thing by any means. But once the door gets opened, the other side abuses it. And so I am somewhat troubled by any kind of overt protest because that will be used as a reason for a much different form of protest, purely partisan in nature, to the next Democratic president or something like that. So I do have concerns about it. I respect the subtle approach. I respect the integrity of what they believe that they have to do to support the country and the Constitution. And I do kind of celebrate it a little bit, but I'm afraid of the repercussions.
Okay, and I'll let you look this up. I know you didn't hear much about this, so I'll let you look this up, and then we'll probably talk about it in our private chat once you finally. Ken was able to watch it, and so I'm gonna let Ken speak on this from his perspective.
I think Rob covered it much better than I could ever have done. And to remind everyone, this is a man who spent close to 30 years in uniform, so he knows what he's talking about from firsthand experience.
And I respect it. I respect him being, honest on the show. Like I said, we've seen the growth, we've seen the transition, we've seen the times that he's been torn on this show. So, we're at 8:30. Another great show. We've been able to get through the topics. I'm gonna let you guys touch base on this fallout in Wisconsin. Mush showed up in Wisconsin to give out the checks to the people who pretty much paid for an election. Disgusting. It was horrible. I'm gonna let R squared and then let Ken give his last comments, and then we'll get ready to close out the show.
I'll be really quick about it because there isn't a lot to say. He did multiple things wrong. Remember, he spent almost $300 million of his own money to elect Donald Trump. That campaign was failing miserably, and Elon Musk paid for the Trump campaign in 2024 and put his muscle behind it. And now, of course, Trump is a wholly owned subsidiary of Musk Incorporated. And so he's doing the same thing in elections around the country. He has been giving millions of dollars to campaigns and opponents to campaigns based on their view, their position on the Trump agenda, but really not the Trump agenda, the Project 2025 agenda. And so you use that as a backdrop. What he's doing in Wisconsin is a couple of things. He gave out, I watched it on television, he gave out 2 $1 million checks to voters. Now, number one, you can't pay voters, right? It's a violation of federal law. I'm sure it's a violation of state law too, but it's a violation of the law, of election law, to pay or incentivize voters. It's even controversial when you do, free rides to the polls and giving out water, even though that's harmless, because you can't be seen as trying to cultivate, to exchange a vote for something of value, be it money or something. And so it can be a sensitive issue. Obviously, a check for $1 million, it's not a nominal thing, right? That's a huge sum of money. And
life-changing.
Now, first of all, it's a violation no matter what. Now, had he said he was going to randomly give 2 checks for $1 million to Wisconsin voters who voted today, that might be at least less harmful. But he only gave it to Republican voters, right? So he was buying votes for the Supreme Court candidate, the Republican Supreme Court candidate, Schmidl. And, by doing this, $2 million, he obviously gave millions and millions of dollars to the campaign as well, which is also a problem. That goes back to Citizens United, but it's, that's an issue, right? When he's able to buy elections, we'll see what the result is. And giving, look, if I'm a voter and somebody gives me $1 million because I voted, that's great, because you'll never get me to change how I'm going to vote. But I think it's extremely problematic that it only went to, because he gave it out at Republican rallies. So clearly there were 2 people picked from the Republican rally, Republican voters. The other thing he did was he gave out, I think it was $1,000 checks to a whole bunch of voters, just given random, Republican voters. So he's buying votes for the Republican candidate. I mean, that's, even if it wasn't illegal, it's grossly immoral and un-American and undemocratic, right? I don't think there's anybody out there that would think this is okay, regardless of the law. But as Ken said, this is blatantly illegal. I'll stop with that.
Ken, anything to add to that before we get out of here?
No, Rob was right. It's blatantly illegal. It's disgusting. It's not what our republic should do. End of story.
Man, great show. Great show. Let's transition here. These are the hats that everybody has bought, and thank you for helping out and supporting us. Also, the shows that I produce, Drafting the Circuits on Wednesday night, Oscar Mike Radio on Thursday night, MattieC Sports. We've got Turnbuckles and Spilt Liquor coming up at 9:30 tonight. You Are the Star karaoke is this Friday at Brockton Beer Company. I will be there. Come on down, sing karaoke. Open for lunch and dinner. Kids eat free Monday through Wednesdays. Brockton Beer Company. Make sure they're down there for lunch and dinner, 121 Main Street. And then Emerge Career. If you're formerly incarcerated, you can now become a CDL truck driver. You can apply, get your CDL, and get employed. So please check out Emerge Career. Journey Church in Kentucky, Bardstown, 3 to 6 is the food pantry. But the food pantries are going to be struggling because Trump cut the funds. $23 billion from the Boston Food Bank has been lost. It's going to be crazy. Sunday, Wake and Bake, 20% off pre-rolls. Saturday program for fitness, Bishop's Training and Fitness, Stay Young. And then the 19th, we will be at the Remy TV Influencer Awards. Viana Marie is nominated Best Female Hip Hop. Wicked Comic Con is also on the 19th. Free tickets, 10 to 5. And then April 25th, this month, Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, is being re-released. Roller Derby at the Starland Sportsplex in Hanover on April 4th. And then Hands Off Musk is this Saturday, April 5th. And then the NAP 1-year celebration is also this Saturday, so you can check that out. And then the Franklin Park Kite Festival has been around since 1969. And then bat buses are free till June 30th, 2025. And make sure to check out that free warrior yoga for first responders and veterans. And don't forget the Run the Home Base, which takes place July 20th at Fenway Park. And that's about it. Broken Chains Biker Church. and then Jamal Brathwaite, who is running for Ward 6. And make sure, if you want to change your elections, Ken, real quick, talk about the grassroots efforts real quick as to why people need to step up in their community real quick before we get out of here.
Look, it's real simple, folks. Think globally, act locally. If you want to change, get involved locally with your local rep, your local council person, whatever, because that's where the real influence starts and ends.
Squid, anything to add to that before we get out of here?
Nope, I agree.
All right, we're going to be back here next month, first Tuesday. I got to look up the date and see when that's going to be, but I want to thank these guys for coming on here. Before we close, I'm going to start with Ken first.
I'd like to thank everyone for showing up tonight. Thank all of our listeners and viewers, all 12 of you. And guys, stay safe, stay informed, get involved.
Squid?
Yeah, thanks for listening. Hope you found the conversation helpful. It's always fun to come on, and look forward to next month.
And Rob was going crazy. for a while there last month, man, you was article after article after article on the corridor. Great stuff over there. People, check out the corridor. It's kind of slowed down right now over there.
Letting people catch up with their reading.
There's a lot of good stuff to read over there, so you want to make sure to head over to the corridor and read these great opinion pieces over there. And again, his back is hurting because I haven't seen anything from Kenya over at the corridor. So. I was expecting some type of immigration column from Ken over there. I need an immigration piece from Ken.
All right, I'll start working on some stuff.
I need some immigration stuff. I thought when I saw the video of the lady in Somerville, I said, "Man, I'm about to get a Ken piece." It's gonna be Ken.
I'll start working on some stuff.
That'd be great. Everybody, I want to thank you for tuning in to the show. Turnbuckles and Spit Liquor is coming up at 9:30. I want to say thank you for everybody supporting the show. And hey, SpongeBob, do me a favor, take us home.
See you next Tuesday.
Thank you for listening to The Booth on Hoobazoo and HatcherRadio.com. Please follow the Facebook page and subscribe to the podcast at Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, and Spotify. The Booth is a Sinister One production hosted by Sinister One.
I've got to start hanging out with friends that are a little more intelligent and understand politics and stuff. It's just that I'm up on this level up here, and all my friends are down here. Me, nah. You guys, nah. Maybe a little more down in here. Screw you guys, I'm going home.
I smoke, I drink, I do my thing. These bitches hating, so you know I got to make it plain. Don't do cocaine with your chick, my main. We stick together, true forever, yeah, you know we bang. I miss those days, which was easy. If only I made it, this shit on repeat. Now that I done upgraded, I've been upstate, but y'all think I'm playing. And I got a hit now for these weak assholes who think I ain't slaying. Try me, and I'll probably end up laughing, cause I never back down. I'm that chick with a clean ass whip, I don't need that shit, cause I got my own now. I get hurt, I get tired of fussing, fighting, guess I gotta crack down. Don't mess with me, cause on everything, I'ma have to bring the whole city out.
WHOOBAZOO, that's Hoobazoo.com.
Enter website, enter website, enter website, enter website.